here in the northwest of Ireland, in the small but, large but and very beautiful county of Donegal. As a charity, we provide ocean and surf therapy based programs to young people who cannot or who would struggle to participate in mainstream environment. We have worked hard to understand the physical, emotional and social benefits that our programs can offer, and we also see it as a great platform for education and learning. And we've also had the pleasure of seeing the ripple effect of how our programs not only benefit the individual, but also the families who get to participate and also their local and wider communities. But we'd like to bring everybody together and bring everybody into the moment and wash away today's stresses and anxieties and busyness. And there is no better person to do that than Dr. Britton. Over to you, Easley.
Thanks, Tom. Wonderful to be here and incredible to see so many people joining from all over and from the surf therapy universe and beyond. So we'd love to open this evening's session and webinar in the style of liquid therapy, drawing on one of the key elements of the ADITO program, which you'll learn more about in a few moments in the exciting report that's just been launched tonight. But we wanted to begin with just a very simple, short grounding practice that's a core element of how liquid therapy creates safe spaces on the beach with the participants. Also a great opportunity for all of us to get a little taster of that right now. So I thought we'd begin just by taking a moment to allow ourselves to land. It's sometimes difficult to make the transition, especially into a virtual space. By just taking a moment to connect with our bodies, our breath, and to simply notice. So wherever you are in this moment, just taking a moment to notice any feelings or sensations in or on the body. So gently bringing your awareness and your focus inward. And without any judgment, just noticing how you're feeling in this moment. To deepen that connection and awareness, bring your attention to your breath. And on your next inhalation, follow the breath into your body like a gentle wave. And just noticing the rise and fall of your body in response to your breath. Noticing the rhythm of your own inner ebb and flow. Rising and falling like the tide. And remembering how we live in an ocean of air, how the ocean breathes for us. We're breathing in the oxygen-rich exhalations of the ocean. And just take a moment to visualize in your mind's eye a recent memory of a time when you felt most alive by the sea or by a body of water. And just taking a moment to recall through all of your senses, the richness of that experience, noticing what you can see, the water moving, the colors and patterns, the sounds, the smells, the touch or feel perhaps of the water itself, and then noticing how it feels to be there in that space. And just take a moment to breathe it all in. And let's take one gentle, slow inhalation all together, breathing into the belly. And when you're ready, just letting it go, sighing it all out and returning to this space. And welcome, everyone. Thank you. And perhaps noticing a slight shift in energy, mood, and feeling after that microdose of virtual blue space therapy.
Thank you, Easley. Yeah, I feel ready for the evening's adventures. So let's just paint a little bit of a picture as to how we got here today. Liquid therapy, for its first decade, was very much a community group. We believed in sharing our love and joy and passion for the ocean with young people who couldn't or who would struggle to participate in a mainstream environment. We slowly grew, and just as COVID arrived, liquid therapy became a charity. We became aware, acutely aware, especially within the families that we served, that the mental health impacts this global pandemic brought was really impacting those who already had an existing diagnosis or who were already struggling. We sat down with our panel of industry experts, which comprised of psychologists, psychotherapists, and early years specialists, blue space researchers, and came up with a program, ADITO, or a drop in the ocean. And this program looked at utilizing the environment that we operated in to tackle some of the problems that these young people were facing. It's going to be easier for me to show you the program than talk about it, as Liquid so often is. And we'd like to present to you the ADITO video captured in 2023, telling you all about it. I'll see you after this.
Liquid Therapy is a surf charity based in South Donegal at Rosnowla Beach. We offer surf lessons to people who may have additional challenges and struggle to participate in mainstream opportunities.
How would you describe the waves? Would you describe them as small, medium, large, or tiny? Tiny! Correct! Look at her, you know. You're very confident with that answer.
A Drop in the Ocean program is an 8-session surf program with a focus on mental health and well-being.
It's very spiritual and relaxing. Whenever you go out, you can just forget what's on the land. You can just feel the moment.
Blue spaces are considered any and all types of outdoor natural water bodies like rivers and lakes, and of course our seas, oceans and coasts. Blue health is a term used to describe an emerging body of work and research and science that's looking at the physical and mental health and well-being benefits of being in, on or near water, especially the ocean and the sea. It's also called blue care or blue prescribing. So these are programs that are designed to tap into and utilize the healing power of water for various groups with specific needs, but these can be really diverse groups. And the benefits of blue space programs or blue health are really multiple across the whole spectrum of well-being, from the psychological to the social and to physical.
There you go. There you go. Now you're balancing, yeah? All right. No balance. Good woman. You got it.
It's just fun to be in the ocean.
Yeah, it's really relaxing and like it just calms me down. I walk outside.
Pods are structured with approximately 4 surfers and 1 pod leader who's a liquid therapy instructor. We keep the pod size small so that the kids have a better chance of engaging with each other and forming little friendships. And also it can be quite daunting to walk into a large group environment for some people, so we try to keep the pods nice and small. Very good. Give it a go. Look for next. It's lovely.
I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's just an amazing feeling that you can never get anything better than. It's just
I like the bio garden and surfing.
So throughout the course of the ADITO, it's really cool to see the surfers grow in confidence and also watching their fears of maybe falling off the board or making a mistake. And just really nice to see that great connection.
Well, they helped me for a long time since I was really young, and now whenever I'm older, I'd love to volunteer so I can give them back what they give to me.
There's strong evidence to support now that water environments, especially the ocean and sea, are the most psychologically restorative of all natural environments for humans. And we're seeing a real rise and an emergence in water-based activities, especially surfing, being used in a therapeutic way to tap into these benefits, especially for mental health. So what is it about surfing, and what is it about the ocean that seems to be so restorative for us? It's particularly beneficial when it comes to stress reduction, and that's to do with the multisensory nature of the environment, the calming effect it has on us, the way in which we feel present in our bodies. It helps also restore that mind-body connection, which is why it can be really powerful for healing and for working with trauma. And also when it comes to the design of the program itself. So when you look at liquid therapies programs, especially Drop in the Ocean, really important mechanisms that are part of that therapeutic process include their inclusive environment, the social connection that's fostered on the beach, and also then the educational element of learning about this environment that you're immersed in, so that the space feels welcoming, safe, and enabling. And that allows participants then to kind of push boundaries and meet challenges in a really healthy way that develops confidence and a sense of self-efficacy and resilience. And these are all outcomes we're seeing that are really positive when it comes to health programs.
So this program, ADITO, which we built in COVID, received the support of Sport Ireland in 2023. In partnership with Donegal, Leitrim and Sligo Sports Partnership, we were able to spend a year delivering this program to a range of audiences and demographics. And with the leadership of Dr. Easley Britton and Dr. Jamie Marshall, we were able to start to credibly capture and record the impact that these programs are having, not only on the individual, but also on their families and their social support groups around them. And on that note, I'm delighted to get off the screen and hand over to Jamie and Easley. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Tom. I guess we'll jump in and just say a little bit about who we are, and then we were going to together kind of co-present the findings directly from this new beautifully designed report on the work we've been doing for the last year with liquid therapy and the results of the ADITO program and the evaluation we developed together. So first, a little bit about me. For those of you who don't know, I grew up here in Donegal on Marsala Beach, where liquid therapy happens. So it's amazing to have on my doorstep. And I've had surfing a part of my life from the very beginning, standing on a board from the age of 4. So it's shaped and formed all of who I am, and also led me on this career path to want to better understand our human connection with nature, especially water and its healing powers. And so for well over the last 15 years, I've been working in what's now become known the area of blue health. So as I was saying earlier, that looking at the physical and mental health and well-being benefits of being in, on, or near water. And yeah, and I get to work with the amazing Dr. Jamie Marshall, Dr. Surf Therapy himself. So I'll pass you over to Jamie now.
You're too kind. Hi everyone. If you haven't met me before, my name's Jamie. I live in the Outer Hebrides, out in the very west of Scotland, but a full-time researcher, actually associated with Edinburgh University. It's a heck of a commute. But yeah, and I specialize in sort of community-led mental health, especially with a focus on sort of safe spaces and blue approaches, so ocean-based approaches to mental health. Just my own journey. It all seems so inevitable now, but I started surfing a little later than Easley, but I actually started surfing as an escape. It was my escape from a tough time at school. So when you see my career, which, you know, started at the Wonderful Wave Project, working the Wave Project up in Scotland, and then sort of veered off into the research world, my whole journey and desire to understand this comes from sort of a personal experience of wow, what is going on here? So yeah, it was a real privilege to be asked to join the liquid therapy team. I've been a super fan from afar for a long time, so I was just so excited to get involved with this project and get to sort of see, as a researcher, one of my greatest privileges is just getting to work with so many amazing people, and it's just a good opportunity to say, you know, all the characters on the video there and everything, just who I've had the privilege to meet only the once, but you're just amazing people doing amazing work. And hopefully the data we've captured is going to demonstrate that in a robust manner. So yeah, we'll get into the reporting.
Dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So how just to structure how we're going to discuss this side of things, and I will note some of these slides are quite wordy. Don't worry about reading them. They're basically extracts from a report that we'll make sure you all have access to at the end of this call. This webinar really is about celebrating the launch of this report. But just going forward for the rest of the call, I'm going to be talking more about what we call the quantitative data. So that's sort of the numbers, that's basically the boring stuff. I'm going to be taking you through that. And Easley is going to be taking you through the really wonderful qualitative stuff, which is we've got visual, we've got words, but it's a lot more understanding people's experiences. And when you're conducting research, and I think Easley will agree with me here, the best approach is a combined approach. You know, it's so important. I had a meeting earlier today, we were talking about this. There's often an obsession with numbers. There's often an obsession with statistics. We want to see statistical significance and all this scientific jargon. We want to see that to prove stuff works. But it's very easy to get lost in the search for a perfect study, a perfect randomized controlled trial, you know, all this sort of stuff. And it's very easy to lose sight of behind every single one of those data points is a real person with lived experience. And really, one is so much weaker without the other. If you're not trying to unpack those experiences alongside getting the numbers, you really are missing out. So that's the approach we took on this. In terms of the quantitative data, the main measures we explored were around sort of what liquid therapy wanted to do with their program. So the first measure was a measure exploring well-being. So that's sort of well-being is like it's like our broader mental health. So it's our approach to sort of life. It's a bit broader than just like an absence of mental ill health. It really looks at sort of how we're positively functioning in society as well. So well-being is a really good measure, especially for populations that are maybe mixed. It's a really good measure to capture. And to capture that, we actually used a scale that was developed by the World Health Organization. It's called the WHO5, World Health Organization 5. And it's a 5-item, really simple inventory that has been validated for working with young people, which is really important. It's very clear and very easy to understand, and it's nice and easy to analyze, which is a nice bonus too. The other scale we used was something called the inclusion of others in self scale, which I always get the wrong way around, so I was double checking that there. The inclusion of other self is about sort of socialization. It's about how close we feel to concepts. And what's brilliant about that scale, and if you are a program who's interested in exploring evaluation, it's a scale I really encourage you to go have a look at. It's a very visual scale, and how it looks essentially on the page is a series of circles, and the circles are sort of how close do you feel this is you and this is the concept. So that concept could be friends, it could be family, and this would be the lowest score, and that they're quite far away, and then the visualizations get closer and closer until they're interlinked. And it's a really great visual scale for capturing what is quite a complex sort of complex topic. And so we use that, and it's also something that young people, we've all as researchers, we've found this scale is a really useful scale to work with young people to unpack those. And the other really exciting thing we did with this is we did it with social groups, which is the very sort of standard way of using the iOS scale. But we also asked young people who took part in the program how that relationship, how that closeness, how that inclusion of self sort of applied to the ocean. So actually exploring how young people's relationship with the ocean developed. And that, to my knowledge, that's never been done before using this scale. And it's a really interesting way of using the scale. And we'll come on to what we found about that. The final quantitative bit that I'm going to talk about, it's quantitative, but it's also under the qualitative side, is we did a word association exercise. And what we do with that is we ask for young people to give us single word answers relating to an experience we described. So for us, we were exploring the feelings in the ocean and feelings at liquid therapy. And those one word answers are really good because we can put them through and basically look at what words were coming up most frequently. So when we get there, some of those words are really not going to be very, very surprising. You're going to very much be some words that you would expect to see there. But it's a really useful way of sort of, in a almost quantitative way, exploring what was important to the participants. You know, the great thing about it is it's completely open-ended. With obviously the WHO5 and the inclusion itself, we're looking at very specific things. We're zooming in on those things and trying to understand how that very specific relationship changed. And the great thing about this word association is it's completely broad and it can lead us in all kinds of different directions. At that point, we're over the dry numbers. So I'll pass back to Easley to talk a little bit about the qualitative data that we collected.
Okay, do we want to move through the slides, or are we just going to talk about the what we did first, or how we did it?
I think maybe just an intro to the qual first, and then we'll get on to the graphs.
This has been well rehearsed. So as Jamie said, yeah, I'm a firm believer in the mixed method approach, being more of a social scientist myself, and I have a real love for the qualitative, and I think what it offers. So the qualitative part of this was carried out in a feedback survey. So after the program had taken place, participants could take it back with them, have time to process and digest the experience, and then respond in their own time with a series of very short but open-ended reflective questions with the option to write as well as draw. So offering that more kind of creative space to share their own experiences in their own way. So that could be through drawing or written word. And there is the potential then, I think, in the future to also include photos or video diaries via, you know, the app as a future application. But the mixed method approach, as Jamie said, provides the opportunity to better understand how participants define and express their experience. I mean, that's I suppose the beauty of the qualitative is to provide the more kind of nuanced insight into what sometimes are very complex or even hidden aspects of the experiences and feelings of participants. So we'll get into that when we share the findings. All right, back to the numbers.
Yeah, if we can switch over to the next slide, that'd be great. And yeah, drum roll, here's sort of the first of our results. Again, don't worry too much about the words. You can read them in as much depth or as little depth you want in the report. But what we found was there was a perhaps unsurprising, most of you are on the call are probably either involved with liquid therapy, involved in surf therapy in your own right, or have come across it. You're probably unsurprised to find that we found a positive change in well-being for the young people who took part in the ADITO program. For those of you who are really into your numbers, it was a relatively small sample. The sample was 45. One thing to note about the stage we're at with the ADITO program and the evaluation is a big part of this was about developing evaluation protocols to sort of continue rolling on. So basically the idea is over the next wee while, we'll be able to continue to add to this data set and further sort of explore these findings. So but we started with a data set of 45, which is, I mean, it's not too small, but it's not for those of you who are interested in stats and stuff, we'd probably statistically power it a little higher if we're going for a super robust study. But the fact it was a small sample made the fact that the change was what we call statistically significant all the more powerful. If you have a big sample, it's almost always statistically significant, just because you've got such a big set of data. It just makes things work like that. So actually, to see that this change was statistically significant was great. Now, statistical significance is a bit of a jargon word, and actually it doesn't mean anything in the manner that many researchers say. Many researchers will talk about your p-value, which is your statistical significance, like it's the holy grail. What we're more interested in is the effect size, because the effect size is actually what is happening, what is changing for the young people. You can have a statistically significant negligible effect, just to understand that. And what we actually saw was a really strong, a moderate positive effect on well-being, which was really, really encouraging. One thing we did notice, which was interesting, is that some of the baselines were quite high. And obviously, if the baselines are quite high, then the overall change is obviously going to be suppressed. And there are a few sort of things we discussed around this. Some of these individuals, the ADITO programs, were returners, and we'll come on to a point of analysis around that that's really, really interesting in a moment. So one of the interesting things we wondered going forward is if we were to target the ADITO programs even further with individuals who perhaps would be scoring a little bit lower on the well-being scale, what kind of a change would we see? And that's something that we're sort of going to explore moving forward. But it was really encouraging to see the positive effect that we expected to see with well-being. It was really encouraging to see that when measured with a robust measure. And then just to move on to the right-hand side of the graphs there, that's the inclusion of others in self-scale. And as you can see, we've got positive changes across the board. The most significant one is in the LT pods. Now, you might have picked it up in the video, but the pod is the little group of young people who are all surfing together. And firstly, I love that terminology. I think it's brilliant, and I'm shamelessly going to steal that. But yeah, there was a huge change in how close individuals felt within their pod, and that positive socialization is so important for people facing mental health challenges. There's a stat I always throw out around this, is that within sort of the PTSD world, the severity and the severity of your PTSD is doubly predicted by the social support networks you have, doubly more so than the actual severity of the incident you're exposed to. So if you're exposed to a horrible incident, but actually have that positive social support network, the data suggests you're actually going to suffer a lot less than someone who maybe is exposed to a moderate incident, but actually doesn't have that social support network. So being able to build these social support networks for the participants is just so important, and is such a foundational element of any kind of community-based mental health programming. So it was so exciting to see that change. Similarly, positives also seen in sort of wider friends and family. And then the C, we also saw a positive element. The relationship with Blue Spaces was significant, but was only small. And we actually think this is largely down to individuals having either been exposed to the ADITO program before, or already having this positive relationship with Blue Health, which is really encouraging to see, because if we look at it in that regard, it means that the positive relationship that the participants developed in their original exposures to ADITO was maintained through to their sort of second exposure. So that was a really interesting. So we actually analyzed that data. That's not presented as much in this graph, but that was actually analyzed separately. So we actually took that subset of individuals who we knew had been through an ADITO program before, and actually did the analysis there and saw that was really the case. So those are our big graphs. If we go on to the next slide, these are our word clouds. Ooh, my formatting's gone a bit crazy there. It's very wordy, but that's all right. These are our word clouds. The one on the left is a exploration of how participants felt around spending time in the water after their exposure to the ADITO program. There's some quite predictable ones in there. Surfing in the UK, I can guarantee if you are involved in any kind of surfing program in the UK, cold's going to come up. We've got friends. I can see friends who are viewing who are in the Netherlands. I can see friends from New York. This is probably something at times will come up at your programs too. So it's reassuring to see that objective truth is coming out in this method of capturing data. But what's just as reassuring is the size of the word reflects how frequently it was reported. So the same amount of time as people were saying cold, they were also saying it was relaxing. You know, they were happy, they were fun, relaxed. There's twice. So, you know, it's just really encouraging to see those next to each other. And actually the ones around calming, about relaxing, what's really interesting about those kinds of words is they directly relate to the wider research around the restorative nature of spending time, the restorative nature of spending time in water. This idea of grounding yourself, the immersive nature of water and spending time in it really helps to calm ourselves down. Some of the young people in the video were saying that, and I'm sure we'll touch upon that in some of Easley's qualitative data. The second word cloud on the right there asks for a word association a bit more broadly around the whole experience of liquid therapy, and we see fun there. Fun's the one, by the way, that you're going to see in every single exercise you do like this. And I would just say fun doesn't sound like a very scientific word, but it really is. I can guarantee you, as someone who dabbles a lot in implementation science, if you are running a children's program of any kind, whether it's mental health, physical health, whatever it may be, if you do not make it fun, your adherence numbers will dramatically drop and the behavior change will not occur, or the knowledge exchange will not occur. Okay, when you're working with young people, you really need to make it fun and engaging. So that's a really valuable piece of data that was being achieved through the surfing and all the other activities that liquid therapy do on the beach. And I think it's important, like if you ever get a chance to visit them, I absolutely recommend it, but see all of the different things that are going on the beach. And I know some of these qualitative data touches on that, so I won't go too deep into that. But the other thing I'd just like to draw out of this particular word cloud is that at the very top there, you see the word nervous. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's not very good, is it? We don't want words like that in our word cloud. But look what's around it: nervous, excited, good, happy, fun, surfing, safe. Love seeing the word safe in there. Nerves are a natural part of trying something new. Nerves are a natural part of pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. So actually, for young people who are facing a wide range of challenges, to actually be willing to push themselves out of their comfort zone, to try something new, to meet new people, the fact that they're feeling nervous, but then they are engaging with the program and they're feeling safe, they're happy, they're having fun, they're doing these good things. It's really good to see that mixture of words in there, and it really speaks to the self-efficacy piece that Easley sort of spoke to on the video part, that building confidence around lots of activities. When I first got involved with surf therapy, the founder of the Wave Project kept telling me it's not actually about the surfing. And yeah, the surfing is a really valuable vehicle, but there's so much more about it. Building confidence around building relationships. The most important thing is not learning to surf, it's learning that you're able to learn how to surf. These sorts of things are really important, and they really reflect in this quantitative data we've captured. I'm sure they're going to be expanded on in much more depth in the qualitative data. So I will pass on to yourself, Easley.
Oh, thanks, Jamie. So wonderful to have what comes next actually grounded in really robust data as well. So I think that's why this complementary methodology is really kind of vital, especially to these kinds of programs and where you're in an environment that is so changeable, unpredictable, and natural. You can't have controlled study settings because it's not a laboratory, and that's what matters. But then how do you capture the essence of that? So that's what we're working with. And also why we decided to open up the opportunity for participants to share in their open-ended reflective questions, not just in written word, but the opportunity to draw, and drawing as a methodology is really interesting because it enables participants to have a more active role in the co-creation of knowledge. So again, it's using liquid therapy's own kind of core values and applying it to the methodology so that the experience of participating in a study like this doesn't feel like a participant is being studied, but that they're an active part of the creation of the knowledge itself, which is kind of vital. And then it offers this really, again, it really reveals the subtleties of some of the experiences in unexpected ways, allowing participants to share how they see, feel, and experience what's happening, rather than us kind of imposing what we think we see in their world. And so what you see here are what was also great at such a relatively small study, and then once people go away with a survey, tend to have much lower uptake and follow-up. We knew that was going to happen. That's a natural part of the process, but actually the responses are really high in the end, both from participants and carers, which was really positive to see, giving feedback to their experience. We had 22 responses from participants and then 17 responses from parents and carers, which offered another perspective. And these are just kind of some of the key insights from that data, both the written words and some of the drawings. I think what kind of showed up very strongly, what Jamie was just speaking to, and what's exciting also to see is how this data, the qualitative, speaks to the quantitative. So it's really, it triangulates really well. Is the speaking to that nervousness piece that shows up quite strongly in the drawings in different ways, or the written responses, of this power of the ocean and how it can also be, you know, intimidating at first, and that sense of fear. But then because of the safe space that liquid therapy then creates, being able to experience that setting, leading to a sense of kind of mastery and skill development, like overcoming those odds and challenges, leads to this enhanced confidence. And also a really key part, especially for young people, is this openness to failure. You know, in this modern society that we live in, we're so risk averse. We're so, you know, for young people, it's all about, you know, having to strive and achieve and do more. And so this, what participants are learning here is this openness to failure is a natural part of the learning process. And that's vital when it comes to enhancing self-efficacy. And so the drawings also kind of illustrate this progressive learning journey of, you know, the initial, you know, oncoming wave that maybe all of us here have experienced to some degree. Getting caught, and but that being part of the process. And then this other illustration of that kind of the journey one of the participants went on from the shore into the shore break, bodyboarding, and getting a feel for the waves, and then at the end sort of feeling on top of the world, riding on the crest of this wave. On to the next slide. And you can see all these quotes are the participants' own words that they shared in this feedback survey. So losing some of maybe the detail in the images here, but again, don't worry, you get a good look at it in the report after as well. But again, it just speaks to also the embodied sensory experience and the importance of that as a way of kind of the sense of like self-discovery. So these images of almost the surfing experience being cosmic, otherworldly, or feeling on top of the world, quite literally, as one of the drawings illustrate. But even the richness of descriptions, that one participant sharing how my first wave was like I was the bubble on top of a glass of 7-Up. I mean, it's just incredible. And then not only about the surfing experience itself, but a lot of what was shared was how that is related to the experience of social connectedness, like being able to feel like you're on top of the world in the sea and in the surf, because you have the support of a welcoming, encouraging environment. You feel part of your pod. Lots of comments about that kind of the mentoring of the liquid therapy team and staff, creating this important sense of belonging. And so just how vital the creation of those safe spaces are. So safe spaces are where there's a lack of judgment, participants feel celebrated and supported in this non-patronizing way, with the ability to engage at their own pace. And that was evident too, and you saw in the video, the different ways, so many different ways participants might choose to engage with water. It might even be surfing. It might just be diving into the waves, playing with the seaweed, or just chilling out on the beach or in the shallows. Like one participant said, I actually just want to sit here and chat. So there's space for that as well. What also came out really strongly was then those blue space nature connections, of that feeling of this feeling closer to the sea. And we saw that in the quantitative data with that, the closeness scale, as I'll call it. But learning about the sea through this deep immersion. And so then that also lending itself to building this greater sense of trust and belonging, and a deep bond with the sea and nature itself, which we're also understanding how vital that is for the development, especially of young people, especially in this modern society at a time of ecological crisis, when our youth are spending more and more time indoors and losing that connection. So that was really positive to see this deep attachment with the sea also forming. Next slide. And a core part of it, unsurprisingly, is this emphasis that participants placed on a playful learning environment. So this novelty of being immersed in a new environment, and how liquid therapy provides for creative play by engaging with the entire blue space. So it's not only just the surfing, but it's this playful element of how you engage with all of the environment, the sand and on the shore, as well as being in the water. And then again, just how important these early experiences of nature connection are, because they really have the potential to cultivate a sense of greater stewardship. And we also know they also lead to more positive feelings and connections with ourselves, our own sense of self, and with others socially. And when we have those experiences of nature connection, especially in childhood. What was really positive to see too, and reflected in a lot of these really beautiful quotes in participants' own words and in the feedback from their carers and parents, is this spillover effect, which is an area that it wasn't part of this study of looking at what happens in terms of after the program ends, or how long-term are the impacts, which we'll talk to next steps in just a moment. But this is really positive for the development and future of liquid therapy and programs like this, of how not only the surfing, but some of the grounding activities like the breathing exercises that are a part of the ADITO program provide these sort of mental health benefits that participants then can apply or add almost to their own sort of toolkit to other aspects of their lives to help cope with stress at school or at home. And I don't know, is there anything to say there? So I think there's just real power in those words that we're seeing here. Even that one of I just want to sit in the water forever. I definitely know that feeling. And this learning about the sea, and that ability to access and experience if you otherwise wouldn't be able to. And then socially, how it brings greater ease, and parents notice how much more relaxed their children are, and then how they're engaging even with school and school friends. Maybe over to you, Jamie, to begin to wrap this up and look at what we see as some of the next steps that have come out of this study. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't actually, my screen is too small to go through these sequentially, so I'm going to just go off the ones that really have spoken to me. I mean, as I mentioned, this is really exciting because it's the start of an evaluation protocol that we can continue to develop and refine at liquid therapy and learn more. That's the most important thing. Is there's so much learning in this report, and I hope you do have a chance to go and read it in a bit more depth. There's all kind of nuance. You may take something away from it that maybe we haven't spoken about tonight, but yeah, there's an awful lot we want to explore. I think one of the things that really came through, especially for myself, as someone who I can put my hand up, who can lose himself in a sort of very health interventionist sort of framework, seeing the sort of relationship with the ocean, and while I'm very aware of the background, and I've been involved in lots of research around with this, what was really interesting to see with liquid therapy that I haven't seen a lot around a lot of the interventions I've worked with, is a very intentional approach to blue health. So really it's about not only exposing people to blue spaces and helping them develop a relationship, but also, educating on the why. Like, actually, this is good for you. And explaining some of that. And that's something I think we want to probably try and interrogate a bit more, and understand a bit better. Sort of a two-pronged approach. One is sort of a bit of this longer term follow-up. So actually exploring how those blue space relationships sort of are maintained after the program, or around the program, or outside the program in participants' wider lives. And then the other side of it is actually, how do we capture this better? And it's something we've been in active discussions around the development of a sort of blue health literacy tool. So how can we actually track that change in knowledge, that change in understanding around the benefits of blue health? Because not only liquid therapy would be a great place to use such a tool, there's programs all around the world that would really benefit from such tools. So that's something we're really interested in exploring further, because at the end of the day, especially with something like blue health, if that last quote there, I want to sit in the water forever. I mean, yes, like I can relate to that sometimes, but we can't do that. We have to live our lives. We have to come home to our families. We have to do all these sorts of things. But actually, what does that feeling actually mean for us in the long term? What does that change about our behaviors? What does that change? And how do we give ourselves the I did some other research as part of my PhD, and I found one of the really great things about discussing blue health in a bit more depth is it actually gives people permission to prioritize it within their wider lives. And when they've heard from someone who they consider as an authority figure, they'll actually give themselves permission to then, well, actually, you know what, that 2 hours in the week I want to go down to the beach, I will prioritize that because it isn't mumbo jumbo. This is good for me. And I need to prioritize my self-care, and this is one way I can do it. So actually unpacking both that changing relationship with blue spaces and unpacking the sort of longer term impact around that are probably two of the things I'm most excited for around next steps. Easley, I don't know what maybe you're most excited about.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree, Jamie. And of course, I mean that's my area to really understand. Okay, that it's about that reciprocity, that relational experience. There's a dynamic happening when we go to these spaces. We're changed by it, and then also how does I think the blue health component is key, because I'm interested in how does that translate into creating a greater sense of stewardship? What does that deep bond with the sea mean, both for own health and well-being, and then most importantly, the health of the planet itself? It's needing to restore that bond. That relationship is crucial for the well-being of the entire planet, in my opinion, and also in the research. So it's not just my bias, but you know what? And it's really exciting to see this come out so strongly in this one study already. And then the other next steps really are just about I think the beauty of maybe developing a protocol like this is trying to make it as user friendly as possible so that it can continue to be rolled out, across programs, across a diversity of groups. And then you building this sort of continually evolving database so that our knowledge continues to evolve about that relationship. And then there's other ways of then when that happens, we can look at the more long-term impacts, which I think we mentioned here in the report as well. And then the potential with the mobile application that was developed to facilitate the implementation of the study has potential then to also simplify the tracking of these impacts and outcomes, again, across programs and locations. I think we maybe, unless you've a final point to share, Jamie, on that, we could also open it up, because I know there's such an amazing group of people here with so much collective knowledge and perhaps questions as well. So it'd be nice to also leave space and time for some of them.
I'd just say as very much the objective, the most objective researcher in this thing, just from Easley, you've got the pre-existing relationship with liquid. I was just blown away by the especially, we heard Tom tell a bit of the story there, and how young really liquid therapy is. And you could have fooled me. It was really just the depth of knowledge, the depth of expertise around facilitating safe spaces on the beaches, the depth of willingness to try different things and try and really make the most of this dynamic learning environment at the beach. Really just, it came through both in my the time I was privileged to spend with liquid therapy, but also in the data. It was just so clear. So I just want to, I guess from that objective standpoint, sort of maybe wrap up by saying, just well done on an incredible job, but also on the lives you've touched in doing that. And it's just so clear through the data we recorded. And hopefully that leaves a bit of time for some questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, thank you so much, Easley and Jamie. Every time I hear you guys talk, I always take away something new and feel inspired. Excitingly for us, at Liquid Therapy, we're the first of a 3-year program, bringing that program into working with 16 to 25-year-olds. And we're excited to continue working with Jamie and Easley, collecting that data and building that sample pool. So over to questions. If anybody, I see a couple coming in on the chat, so we might address those first. Do I need to read them out loud? Will I read them out loud and put it to you guys? So our first question is, when collecting the quantitative findings, how did you find collecting it from participants who maybe would not enjoy or finding this easy to engage with?
Yeah, this is something we worked on with Liquid sort of in advance of the actual data collection and everything, and we did some trainings and we did some various things. As I just mentioned, the liquid therapy facilitators are experts in holding a safe space, and it really is crucial that that safe space is held first. You know, it really is very important that that's prioritized, that the first thing that you're ambushed with at a session is not a form or something like that. It really just is very important. So it's actually understanding that the evaluation and the research exists to serve the intervention. So actually, let's prioritize the intervention and how we would act at the intervention before doing that. And then it really is a case of just like being honest. I'm a great believer in this with regards to the evaluations. It's just saying that this will really, you know, this just helps us out with understanding the program. And the other thing that is really important to stress is it is optional. It really is. You can't force people to collect data. The moment you force people to collect data, their data is invalidated pretty much because of the state they're going to be in. But it's just about holding that safe space and explaining both the reason for it and the sort of the processes really, really clearly. So just explaining what each question, going through the question with participants. Again, there's a quest for perfect objectivity, which doesn't really exist. You know, we need to be pragmatic. We need to collect what we can. And yeah, so we basically went through this training process and found that it landed pretty well. And the great thing is, as we've mentioned, is this is the first in a series of evaluations, and the staff and the facilitators are just getting more and more skilled at doing that. So yeah, it's something, there's no silver bullet, there's no easy fix. It's about practice, hard work, and most importantly, facilitating a safe space first and foremost.
Thanks, guys. Siobhan's question is, what number of weeks were these sessions delivered over, and what ratio was there between the educational element and the surfing? Really great report, guys. Will I answer that one?
That might be one for you, Tom. Yeah.
So the program was designed to run twice a week over a 4-week period, so it's quite immersive. One of the findings from the report was that actually maybe school groups, that was a bit too immersive and wasn't very compatible with the educational timetable. So we realized that ADITO maybe needs to be in a range of formats, but its true intent was twice a week for 4 weeks. And we run a ratio of 1 to 4 with an additional support facilitator on the beach, just in case, you know, an individual might need just like a higher level of support in that moment or in the time that they're in. Stitching survivor. Can you see it happen in the near future that organizations around the world will combine the collection of data so we can build a global impact instead of just programs separately?
Yes, I would love to see this. I think it's vital for any progress or success in this sector that we continue to have open forums like this, where it's as open access as possible, and we keep sharing the data collection, what's working well. And so this knowledge exchange is vital. I think it's really important then to have then the role of ISTO, the International Surf Therapy Organization, too, to continue to track that. This is a challenge, both in terms of, how contextual each of these experiences are, you know, having to embed it within, you know, so many different, what am I trying to say, Jamie? What works in one place may not work somewhere else, but in terms of the program. But I do think in terms of an evaluation protocol and collecting of data, there are definitely universal tools and methods for doing that. So maybe over to you, Jamie. I'm sure you've given this a lot of thought as well.
Yeah, and just to echo what you said, Easley, like, you know, it's horses for courses, to use like a term. Like, Ben, your population is very different to this population in Ireland. Even if they were similar populations in terms of why they're at your program, Ireland and Holland are very different. So, you know, there's for example, there's language considerations. I've done a lot of work around the world with different programs, and actually translating a psychometric tool is a heck of a task, because I'm just making sure that the meaning is not lost in the translation process is really difficult. So yeah, yes and no. I think it's about helping organizations. This is something ISTO has worked very hard on and is continuing to work very hard, helping organizations find the best tools for them, and that matches with what their program is trying to do for a certain population in a specific context, and helping find those specific tools and produce really good evaluations and research. And then it's up to us as researchers to do the really hard work on what we call systematic reviews, which is where we're combining lots of studies to look at the broader impacts. Now, the really interesting thing about systematic review is while the domain has to be the same, so for example, something like mental health, the measures don't have to be identical. You can actually combine studies that are using different measures as long as the domain's the same. It's really difficult, and it's not necessarily my favorite kind of research, but like, you know, once all the orgs around the world are sort of knocking out the park with this kind of research and evaluation, the pressure's on us as researchers to then harness that and produce these systematic reviews and things. And systematic reviews and things like that are the things that really start getting sort of someone like the WHO to notice. They're the thing that gets surf therapy prescribed in lots of countries. So yes, but it's not as simple as it might appear.
Yeah. And then it's also vital that there are these collaborations, these cross collaborations across sectors with the charities and organizations on the ground, and then with access to researchers and research institutes to work together, so that you can develop robust protocols that then can actually end up in a peer-reviewed paper or study. So there's more great questions. There's also, I think Michelle and Declan have their hands raised, and then Rory has a question in the chat. It would be great if we could try and
perfect. Michelle, do you have a question? Do you have to unmute Micah? Okay, I'll move on. Declan.
Tom, how's it going? Jamie, Easley. You hear me okay?
Yep.
Great report, by the way. And it's fantastic, you know, to hear you guys break it down. I've been lucky enough to be involved in the ADITO program, and I took away so much from being involved in it, never mind the kids themselves. But I think, Tom, you maybe answered the question I was going to ask when I was going to ask, is it going to be rolled out, you know, to an older audience, so that maybe the results and the analysis of that to an older group is then maybe compared to the younger group, and you know, are they getting the same results? Are the users or the surfers getting the same sort of benefits from that? And then obviously it's not just a analysis on on children, if you know what I mean. It's a one-all thing, if you know what I mean. So this ADITO program can be packaged up, and any surf therapy program can take that, no matter what age group, you know. So that was the question I was going to ask, but I think you maybe sort of answered that for me. But well done. The report is fantastic.
Thanks, Declan. Shane. All right. Oh, here we go.
Hey, Shane.
Yep. Sorry. Can you hear me, Tom?
Yeah, I can.
Just a quick one. Yeah, thanks. I'm just a sports inclusion officer in Sligo, guys. So I've been kind of involved in the project. We do a kind of a range of surfing programs and other types of programs for young people with all different types of ability levels. So it's really interesting to get some of the feedback. But I suppose a key challenge for us in the sports partnerships and is to try and get effective evaluation and research on our programs, and that's to do with time and to do with expertise and whatever else. And we are trying to create a better culture of evaluation within the sports partnership. But I'm just wondering, and Jamie, I suppose in terms of the word, and it's just nice to see some novel ways of doing some research that maybe we could introduce ourselves to get a little bit of feedback. So in terms of the word association kind of exercise, was that, how far into the program was that carried out? Do you mind me asking? Was it like in last week, or was it earlier?
Yeah, we tend to do the word association at the end of the program, just so it's really open-ended. You can, with certain concepts, you could actually do it in a sort of pre-post structure, and look at sort of how those word clouds change over the period of time. It's for example, like actually with the ocean, for example, that's one way you could do that. Obviously, your experience with liquid therapy more broadly, just use the two that we've used.
Yeah.
There's not really much point asking that before the program because most of the guys and girls haven't been down yet. But maybe actually exploring how that relationship with the ocean changes is one way to do it.
Okay.
So yeah, majority of the time it's a good way to do something exploratory at the end of a program. But if you are exploring specific concepts around the other place I've used this in a pre-post manner is physical activity. So actually exploring people's perceptions and understandings of physical activity pre and post sort of behavior change intervention. This one word sort of association can be a really interesting one. And what I really like about it is it's exploratory. The participants really lead where that goes with their words, and it can really push us in certain directions. Like, for example, the nervous and the self-efficacy, that makes us start thinking, well, maybe we should be looking at self-efficacy a bit more in some of the quantitative. So, yeah.
Okay. And just actually there, you kind of went on to my next kind of question. So when you asked them the word, was it a case that they could come up with as many words as they want to associate with that particular question or word that you said, or was it that there was no limits on what they came back with? You just took whatever they came back with?
We normally go for about 3 words.
Okay.
You want to try and keep them as like individual words. So like give me like 3 words, but not like 3 words that make up a small sentence. And sometimes getting that across is actually more challenging than it might sound now on a Thursday night. But yeah, you really want to get like, what are the when I'm actually delivering it, I like to say, I say liquid therapy. What are the first 3 words that come into your head? And in that way you really get those. So you're looking for a real summative sort of from the heart, sort of from the heart or from the gut or whatever you want to call it. That just real instinctual response. I just think it's a great way to. Again, it's not something you're gonna publish in Nature or anything like that, but it's such a useful evaluation tool in my personal experience.
Yeah, no, and it's something that you might, it sounds workable with some of the groups that we might be able to deal with. That's great. And just very, very last one, and I promise I'll let you go then. Just actually this might be for Easley, just in relation to the themes that you were talking about from some of the other feedback, Easley, like the safe space, the playful learning experiences, the deep bonds. Did you have those themes kind of before you started asking the question, or did they evolve from the answers and responses that you got from the young people?
No, they evolved then, through this, so they weren't pre-prescribed or anything at all. So that just in the way that Jamie says, very exploratory. So they really emerge from the data, which is the participants' own experiences in their own words through qualitative analysis. So it's a very grounded approach in that way. And then you kind of compare those responses. You do the thematic analysis and see how it fits with the literature around surf therapy, for example. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Well done.
Oh, there's great questions coming in. We need more time. Great to hear, Cliff, you're on the call too. Wonderful. And then there's a few. What do we do?
We'll go. I'll give you one more, and then people can drop off if they need to. And then I think Easley and Jamie are
I'm happy to stay on
to stay till the end of the
questions. So we'd have this level of engagement. So thanks, everyone.
So Rory's question, if you do have to go, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been great. So Rory's question was, love to hear more about the practices you teach that participants can take away from the beach and use them in their lives, their daily lives.
That would be definitely one for you and your team, Tom, but I think in response to what I heard, from the data, what the participants said themselves, were even quite specific examples of the breathing practices, like the hand breathing, like just connecting with your hand on your belly, I think those exercises that help in a way create the safe space and the connection with the sea actually are really important ways of just connecting with yourself, bringing in that level of self-awareness, which helps us better cope and be less triggered in the outside world, so to speak. But I know, yeah, your team would have so much more to say on that, which is, so it was really rich. I think that was very clear from the data. It was not just about the surfing or learning to surf, but it was those other practices. And you saw some of them in the video, like those sensory experiences of like the stacking the stones and the mindfulness and the breathing, and yeah, just to roughly summarize. But I know
just to jump in there, like it really matches some stuff in the wider literature around the ocean being such a dynamic learning environment, and actually getting to practice, especially some of these emotional regulation techniques, which I know liquid therapy do, being able to practice it in response to a real stressor. So actually, like after a wipeout, doesn't matter how, I mean, Easley surfs Molly and stuff, you know, I'm sure you still have a stress response when one of those lands on your head. You know, it doesn't matter how long you've been surfing, a wipeout will still cause your heart rate to spike, and you have this intrinsic response. And actually being able to practice something you've learned, it's all well and good learning mindfulness in a classroom, or learning a breathing exercise to help with your heart rate or something in a classroom. If you're able to learn it somewhere and then actually use it in response to a real world stressor, but still in that supported safe space, it's incredible. It really is. And that's something that we've seen in the wider literature as well as in the work we've done with liquid therapy. So yeah, making the most of that dynamic environment. That cold water is another great one. You know, actually practicing a breathing exercise and then using the sort of cold water shock when you first get in as a chance to practice it. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, maximizing that ocean classroom is something that came through really strong.
Yeah, brilliant.
Perfect. It looks like there's just one more question.
Well, we have Denise, who is there with
raise hand too.
her hand up. Lovely to hear from you in person, Denise. And then we maybe get to Cliffs and then we can close.
Okay, Denise, fire away.
Hi, thank you. It was amazing to hear the research. My question is, how did you include in your research a child or participants that are non-verbal? How did you include them in gathering your research? Did you have to go to the parents for the research, for their response, or did you get visual cues from them, or is my question.
I'll hand over to Jamie and Easley, but I will just, to participate in an ADITO program, there were two prerequisites for this to be a suitable program. One, the participant had to be able to move independently in the water. And two, they needed to be able to contribute to a small group conversation. So those were two of the prerequisites to participate in the ADITO. Easley and Jamie, I'm not sure if you'd had anything there, but just thought I'd chuck that in.
Oh, great, thank you.
Yeah, no, really important question, Denise, and that's a real, challenge area as well. I would say, in the context of this study too, it was there was, varying degree of the level of maybe support participants needed in responding and answering the survey with their parents or carers, and then how it was also then, of course, facilitated and delivered by the liquid therapy team too, in terms of like explaining the concepts. So sometimes there's sticking points there, even around like well-being and concepts that we, even as adults, we have issues comprehending, but that we stuck with the tools and the measures that were used were the ones that were, I suppose, most universally applicable as possible, but it does vary for each individual. I have worked in settings then with different groups who would be nonverbal, and there are other methodologies, especially when you use the visual, and even things like using the sand itself to be able to draw, or one exercise we did, and there's a paper that was written on it that maybe we could share via liquid therapy too, on like body mapping. Jamie, I see you nodding too, and I know you have lots of experiences as well. So there are other methodologies that can be used that are really valuable too.
Great,
as well as parents and carers giving their insights too, which are always really valuable. Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to add there. There are tools out there that are specifically designed for this, and actually, I think just some of the qualitative work we did in really trying to make it as, it was led by the participants. We were you know, it was mainly drawing and written, but, you know, we gave scope to record, we gave scope to however the participants wanted to express themselves and however they most felt comfortable. We wanted to give them the choice around that. And I think that's something that's, you know, it's a worthwhile thing to do, but it actually leads to really rich data. So I think the more you can actually sort of allow your participants to lead on not only on the way we collect data is a really powerful, but there are also there are other measures for the quant side of things. There's lots of different measures out there.
Great, thank you so much. So you answered my question. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Denise. Thanks so much for joining.
No problem.
And then we just Clifton Rose, who's also done amazing research in this area of blue space and blue health, I just think a really valuable question to flag. I don't think I have the answer to it, but he's asking, have you considered how the evaluation protocol could incorporate measuring the impact on participants who may wish to and are trying to continue experiencing the benefits of surfing and blue health outside the safe space, especially considering surfing may not be culturally or environmentally safe in many locations? And it's interesting that you asked that as well, Cliff, because it came up even a lot of the responses were like people wanting to access more of this outside and beyond the program and wondering how they could continue it and the challenges around that. Jamie, to you, I'm about it to you first.
Yeah, no, and actually, I think that's firstly, it's so important to recognize that surfing is not intrinsically a safe space. I actually, Easley, your chapter on I can't remember, is it disputed spaces or that chapter I frequently cite because especially people outside of our space see surfing as this happy clappy, everyone's throwing shackers and smiling, and anyone who actually has surfed there like more than a week knows it's not like that. I ran away to a tiny island in the middle of the Atlantic to try and find my own sort of space and peace. And yeah, like, you know, I'll be honest with you, part of that's because, I want to just run away from a lot of the nonsense that happens in the water. So the first point of your question, I just want to celebrate. That's such an important thing for us to recognize and verbalize and be honest about. Because it doesn't, the marketing and everything else doesn't want that story out there, but we need to be clear on that. But I'd just say, like, it's really interesting. Like we talked about, this was kind of the start of an evaluation protocol, and actually exploring sort of almost case study approaches in the longer term of how people then take what they're learning from the program into their wider lives. And actually, again, it's important it comes back to that point about surfing, not necessarily being it's not all about the surfing. And there's a particular quote from one of my PhD studies that just sums this up really well. I'm working with Ways of Wellness in Australia, where there was a young person on one of their programs who basically got exposed to mindfulness and blue space and all of this sort of things. And it goes back to one of my other points. What they learned from that is that, like, self-care was important, and they actually needed to prioritize time. They were so busy, they were school and everything like that, they never prioritized their own self-care. And they really enjoyed the surfing. They had a great time with the surfing, but realistically for them, they weren't going to be able to surf regularly. But they love to run. And what they did is they actually built running into their life, and they gave themselves permission to do that for self-care. And they came up with this beautiful term in the interview I was conducting, where they said, and it became my mental health maintenance. And I just think that's really interesting. And they were doing it weekly or twice a week, and they were doing it on the beach. They were getting their blue space as well. But yeah, it was just really interesting seeing what that young person had taken from it. Is actually they'd taken the deeper learnings, recognized how they could implement those deeper learnings within their wider life, and they'd implemented it. And for me, that's like that's the golden goose. That's what we're looking for, is that learning from that program, even though that person is not surfing very much at all anymore, the learnings they've taken from that program have had a life-changing positive impact on them. So I think, trying to explore that and actually explore, what are the deep messages, what are what are people doing around blue space, and what are they doing? Because at the end of the day, it's a very personal sort of decision, and personal preference is actually a big part of mental health. That it's one of these things we like to standardize, we like to prescribe, we like to do all these sorts of things, but actual personal preference is a hugely important factor when it comes to, for example, treatment selection. Some people prefer certain kinds of treatments to others, and that's, especially in mental health, that's fine, and we have to accept that. So actually supporting our participants to find their way, and then sort of speaking to them so we can learn how we better do that within our programs is such a valuable question. So I'm really not answering your question at all, but just echoing what an important question it is, and just we know who we need to talk to find those answers.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, kind of for me, what's landing is how do we create these cultures of care that are so vital in the world right now? Thinking about we're in this little microcosm here, but that it does have this ripple effect in the world. And how do you grow it beyond? How does that, the spillover effect, how does that happen beyond these programs? How are we carrying it out into the world? So yeah, leaving you with more questions than answers. Thank you, everyone. Amazing work, and huge congratulations to the Liquid Therapy team as well. And such a pleasure to work with you, Jamie. Thanks, everyone, for joining and sticking it out. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, everybody. And again, if you want a copy of the report, just drop us an email or reach out to us on any of our social platforms, and we'll get that sent out to you personally. Thank you.
Okay.